What's up, guys? Barry Gaming here, back with some more Idle Heroes, and today we're going to be talking about a stat really doesn't get highlighted or talked about all that much, but is becoming a very dominant force in the power of your account. That's armor. And you might be thinking, Barry, how do I even get armor on my account? Like, gear doesn't even give armor. How do you get armor to get a tankier team? Because you can get up to 90% damage reduction through armor. That's somewhere in the ballpark of like 12 to 13,000-ish armor, which is actually very much easily to get nowadays with a couple things like Transcendence Heroes, Awakening copies. So let's talk about the places you can get armor, why it's so important, and why it is so strong. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Let's jump right into it. So to start off, let's jump in and talk about the stat. It's a really difficult one to even talk about because, well, you can't even click to see what armor does in game. There's nowhere that actually tells you what this is doing, and you just have to know from everybody who does breakdowns, knows a little bit more about the game, has data mine information, and then we can pass it on and share it along with you. I think even Rex did a video about this a couple weeks ago or something like that, where he had a whole spreadsheet breakdown. If I'll try to see if I find it. I think he said he was going to make one about that, so if he did, I'll try to link it so you guys can check it out. Most likely as a spreadsheet, all that other fun stuff that has some cool calculations. But what does what does armor do? Well, it is a form of damage reduction, and it is completely separate from damage reduction from other sources, like you see right down here. Now, armor has a 90% damage reduction cap to it, whereas damage reduction, the stat, caps at 75%. So those are two different calculations. You can get armor at 90%, and then damage reduction will take care of the other 75%. Armor is essentially going to reduce the active, basic, and dot damage abilities. I'm not quite sure if it does reduce the damage of passive type attacks. I mean, the most plain to talk about passive you can ever talk about is Garuda's her actual extra attacks that she does, that she follows up on enemies. That is something that's important. But what you're noticing here is a lot of our heroes have this very similar stat here, and it's pretty static overall on the majority of heroes until you see ones that have percentage bonuses. Now, this is pretty static here. You will notice some people in PvP actually prioritizing armor, going upwards of 12 to 13,000 because that is the cap of 90%. And when you're at that 90%, the enemy literally needs at least 40 or more percent armor break to break through that amount to actually start doing bonus damage to that target. So armor is very much an understated stat, but it's like, you don't actually get armor on your armor in this game. It's very weird. You don't even get it in a lot of places in this game. Artifacts, stones, none of that. You don't get it in enabling. The one place you do or are able to get it is in your imprints for Transcendence Heroes. So you'll notice here we have 34, 35 armor. If we jump on over here, there's one very huge stat bonus, and that is this one right here, imprint of armor. 80% bonus armor, and you'll notice immediately we go up to 6184. That is a huge boost in survivability, which is why I say if you're doing things like Void Campaign, things like that, going for this armor imprint on the heroes that are not dealing damage and maybe even are dealing damage is a huge boost to your survivability. It just depends on what you need that hero to do. Like, honestly, in this hero here, if we're not dealing damage, we want to go armor, we want to go for something like block and damage reduction, and this would be the tankiest setup that you could possibly do for your hero. Help keep them alive in the battle. Because you'll notice, look at that, you're basically doubling the number of armor that you have. Not quite, but it's pretty good. Now, the other thing that is very surprising is there are roles on your awakenings. I think you might actually be able to see it in here, can't you? If you go down to S tier, I actually don't think it shows you the roles you can get. I'm tempted to do some, but there's a couple things that are really interesting because I think I had a copy of him that had somewhere in the ballpark of another 60 to 100% armor bonuses, and that's where things really start getting spicy and really, really good. I think I actually have one copy. Yeah, Eos has a 35% armor as a B- copy. Of course, the higher the tier of Awakening you go, the more bonuses you will get. There's a couple other places that you can get armor. One of them being one of the newest Starspawn here. This guy right down in the corner, Spirit of Bravery. This one can give a ton of armor. I think it's upwards of like 30%. And on top of that, your Fortress and Warrior heroes are going to get 30% bonus of that armor. And then, of course, it is tweaked by your Star Destiny buff that you have, your Awakening copy, essentially, on your Starspawn. So, block chance, armor chance, fixed HP, a little bit undervalued, but most of us go for the raw damage, essentially. Clicking all over wrong places. Most of us go for the damage ones because in reality, we're trying to kill stuff immediately. If you are focused on PvP, this is probably one of the best ones to have. Block and armor is just, it reduces the damage that you're incoming very, very much. And I know there are some treasure train treasures that provide this as well. I think there's like ones for warriors even. I know there's a couple different ones in here that have some big bonuses, but I don't know which ones they are. And then on top of that, there's certain game mode buffs that you can get, like 8% in Void Arc, Realms Gate, all that fun stuff. There are tons of ways to get them in here, but the biggest bonus comes from your Awakening copy and your Void imprinting on your copy. So those are two very big things. And those are going to be highly affected by a lot of things because there's really only one thing that bypasses armor. Well, kind of two. Of course, one of them is your armor break stat right here. You're going to need at least like 40% if they are maxed out. If they're at lower armor, this becomes a much better valued resource. The other one is holy damage. Holy damage is damage that completely bypasses armor. And that is just absolutely amazing. Absolutely crazy good. But we don't have many heroes that have abilities like this. We, of course, have really old heroes like Sword Flash that have ones that are specifically say they are armor ignoring damage. And that's why these types of abilities for the longest time dealt so much damage. I think even like Russell's main or his arrows or something like that. Maybe not. Anything that hits multiple times, though, can be applied. Can apply holy damage, which is why heroes like Vesa, you want a high holy damage amount on there because every single one of her hits can apply that bonus damage. And it can add up very, very quickly. So armor is a very important stat to have, but not really a stat you need to prioritize if you're not in like the late game, mainly PvP oriented, but it'll give you a huge boost. Now, the only other thing I want to talk about with this is there is something that you can get from your awakenings, especially when you get up here. I think it's called Divine Block. I think that's the one there. Let me see if we can actually find something in the auction house that has it and we can show it. Now, while searching for that, I actually came across another one I want to talk about, Holy Armor. So, Holy Armor is interesting because it gives you the strength, or rather the strength of your Holy Armor equals 100% of your armor value. So, if you have that extremely high armor value getting 90% damage reduction, this is also going to affect all other damages that are not affected by armor, such as holy damage. So, you can basically take 90% of that holy damage the enemy is doing to you and completely zeroing that out. So when you take into account all those things, you can get up to like 60% bonus armor just from awakening copies. They do, however, need to be like S tier, I think, or at least A tier when it comes to that amount there. I think we had one on a previous video when we were re-rolling this. If you want to go back and check out the video where we were building Hyperspace Hunter Isle of Mach, you can probably see one of the good rolls on there as well. But the other thing you have to remember too is we are in the process of upgrading our heroes. They do get a bit of armor, and the main way you acquire armor is simply leveling up your heroes. You'll notice you do get more armor by going up in X levels. That's one thing we used to kind of be like, well, I guess maybe it's an okay stat. I wish they gave speed here for X level. Sadly, they don't. They give armor, but it's a very negligible amount. It's not a huge bonus, but X upgrading heroes is definitely going to be a bonus. And of course, armor from Awakening, armor from over here, which I don't think we have it here, but those are really great ways to get additional damage reductions. Hopefully it helps clear it up, let you guys understand a little bit better about how damage reduction is calculated, mainly through armor and the damage reduction stat. And I'll see you guys next time.